And among the nominees for Best Startup is Tribe. It's a brand advocacy company which connects businesses with key influencers across social media platforms to create highly targeted digital campaigns. I spoke a little while ago with Tribe CEO Anthony Svirkis and started by asking how he responds to those naysayers, among them myself, who claim that the power of influencers has been overstated.
What we're seeing through our platform is huge efficiencies that are achieved through combining technology with social media influencers and content creators. So with the power of technology and the technology that we've built and released in Australia, we have the ability to connect a vast majority of social media influencers with brands with efficiencies in cost and scale.
Okay, let's take one step back for the audience at home. When we look at what an influencer is, do you have a clearly defined definition? And are you looking at just on how much their social media reach is, how many followers they've either got on Instagram or Facebook, or is there more to it? Do you want a proven record of the fact that they can actually get their audience to buy things or to join certain groups or whatever it might be?
Yeah, sure. Well, at a very basic level, we deal with the three main platforms, which is Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and we consider a social media influencer as someone who has over 3,000 followers in either of those platforms. Soon we're going to build out into Snapchat, YouTube and LinkedIn as well. But what we look at when influencers come into our platform is levels of engagement they've had on their content, understanding that an influencer has value in their audience, and that's the audience they've built over 2 to 3 years, but they also have value in being content creators. And we are very focused on attracting a type of influencer that has a very strong engagement history with their audiences because they've been creating amazing content. If we start to move into areas like ROI, we're also investing a lot of the time with working with our better clients around building ROI case studies to really understand the metrics which drive conversion and sales for them.
Okay, well, we all hear those stories about if Kim Kardashian puts out a tweet or an Instagram post about a certain product and those products go flying off the shelf. But do you think audiences are waking up to the relationship between influencers, the people that they follow on these social media platforms, and that being sometimes paid for content? Does that pose a potential risk to the model if people start thinking, wait, this is an ad, this isn't somebody organically just liking a product and wanting to share it?
Well, absolutely, they're aware of it, and through our research and all the data that we see through our platform, there's actually no difference if an influencer is upfront and transparent about the fact that a piece of content has been sponsored or not. The biggest difference that we see is actually the content is high quality and it's aligned very well to the audience that influencer has and also to the brand. So what we do at Tribe is we attract citizen influencers or citizen marketers. So these are typically influencers who have under 100,000 followers. We don't deal with the top end or the Kim Kardashians or even the Australian versions of the very celebrity type influencers. We deal with everyday people who, like everyone else in society, makes conscious brand choices. What we try to do as a platform is make sure that these influencers are connecting with the brands that they choose every day as consumers and then giving them the ability to promote to their audiences.
It strikes me that there could be a risk to the model in that you're dealing with people who, I assume in large part, are amateurs to the marketing game. They haven't necessarily got a track record of working advertising or marketing, and so then when they're going through your platform, is there a risk that they won't stay on message? Is there a risk that their own personal life could become an issue? The fact that they're maybe not a trained professional means that could pose a risk to those companies that are linking with them?
It's a very low risk, to be honest. I mean, we've built a marketplace model which essentially allows influencers to submit content, but that content isn't approved until the brand gives their okay on it. Now, that's the okay on the content, it's the okay on the influencer, and it's okay on the message being aligned with the brief. So ultimately, the brand has the final say on whether that content goes live and whether they're willing to pay for that content and how much they're willing to pay for that content. So the risk of poor quality content or off-message content going out into social media is very, very low. The other thing we do is, instead of going focusing all efforts with a celebrity influencer who has 1 million or 2 million followers, we allow brands to buy 10 or 20 influencers at 10 or 20,000 followers each. So the message is spread over a number of influencers, which mitigates risk on any one message not being right.
And how has been the response from the business community? Are there certain types of companies that are more interested in pursuing this? I'm assuming that it skews younger. These are companies that want to be seen as on the cutting edge, as opposed to, say, traditional, I guess, companies that are directed maybe at a middle-aged market. Do they tend to be younger? Do they tend to be more pro-risk?
Actually, what we've been really happy about is allowing mainstream and high-profile brands to access influencer marketing. Before Tribe came along, they would traditionally have to go through a PR agency or an influencer talent management agency, and because we've created this consistent and systemised and automated product to allow them to buy social media influencers at scale, it gives them a lot more confidence entering into the transaction, because there's a lot more transparency, there's a lot more choice, and there's a lot more power on their side to actually choose the content and the influencers that they want to work with, seeing the content up front.
And how have you found raising capital? Here on Business IQ, we try to keep an eye on what's happening in the startup community. We know that we've gained increasing visibility on the importance of the tech economy to Australia more broadly, but there has been, we've heard, still a reluctance from a lot of the big funders, those with the bags of money, to actually invest in this space. Have you found that they've been quite welcome to come along? How has your been individual experiences at Tribe?
Yeah, look, we're in the middle of a capital raise at the moment, and it's going very well. And we're certainly getting a lot of interest. That interest comes from local Australian VCs as well as funds out of Asia, and certainly high net worths who are interested in investing in tech companies and fast growth companies. Our trajectory in Australia is very pleasing to date, and that certainly gives us an ability to sell a story. But what we're looking at doing now is expanding into Asia, and we have the opportunity to do that at this point in time, understanding that this industry moves very quickly. We're in a very strong position with what we've achieved in Australia, and that opportunity to move into Asia is fast approaching. So our ability to raise capital is really dependent on not only what we've achieved in Australia so far, but what we can achieve in the next 12 months with new capital coming in.
You have been quoted as being critical of some of the overpriced IPOs that we've seen in the tech community in Australia, suggestions that maybe a lot of companies are going too early to a public listing, and that may end up burning a lot of those investors, and potentially then obviously has a flow-on effect for other tech companies who then try to go to the market. What do you think's driving that? Why are you thinking we're seeing some tech companies rush too early to the IPO market? Is it just a case of wanting to get out before it all comes to an end?
Yes, it looks certainly historically there's been some pretty early stage tech companies that have gone public and have done it well. I think ASIC is doing the right thing at the moment, which is tightening the reins a little bit around that. There's an ability to raise capital in public markets, which is very different to private markets, and when you have a good solid business, the ability to raise on private markets is not that difficult. It's certainly a different strategy, and it's a longer term strategy. But for Tribe, and I would like to comment on Tribe, that we've had a lot of success on the private markets, and certainly the interest we're getting on the private markets is strong. I wouldn't rule out public market in the future, but at this stage of our business, while we're still trying to grow and build a robust and scalable business model, the private market is where we're looking for our capital.
And so no horizon, nothing on the horizon as far as the IPO is concerned for yourselves. Do you have a time frame that you think it might happen in?
No, it's not in our midterm objectives. We're looking at this raise at the moment, and then we'll look into expansion and how that expansion rolls out. Then we'll assess it in a year or two's time. But certainly IPO is not on our immediate agenda.